The scream came at 3:47 a.m. Jonathan Harrison bolted upright in his king-sized bed, heart hammering. For a disoriented moment, he thought he was back in that hospital 8 months ago, hearing the sound of his son crying out in pain. But this was different. This was worse. He threw off the covers and ran down the marble hallway of his mansion, his bare feet silent on the cold floor. Lucas's room was at the end, the one they'd converted into a medical suite, complete with hospital-grade equipment and around-the-clock nursing staff. The night nurse was already there, trying to calm the 11-year-old boy thrashing in his bed. "Lucas!" Jonathan reached for his son, but Lucas recoiled, his eyes wild and unseeing. "Mom! Mom!" The boy's voice was raw, desperate. "She's stuck! Mom!" It was his worst nightmare, reliving that moment over and over, the truck colliding with them. His mother's death, as he sat trapped in the back seat, unable to move, unable to help, only able to watch, helplessly. "Son, you're safe. You're home. You're—" Jonathan grabbed him. "Help! Help!" Lucas screamed, and then suddenly, violently, he vomited. The nurse moved efficiently, cleaning up, checking vitals. Professional, detached. Jonathan stood there, useless, watching his son sob into his pillow. This was the 5th nightmare this week. The psychiatrist had said they'd decrease. The medication was supposed to help. Everything was supposed to help. Nothing helped. Jonathan walked to the window and stared out at the manicured grounds of his estate. 43 acres, indoor pool, tennis courts, a garage full of cars worth more than most people's houses. And his son screamed every night for a mother who would never answer. What good was $4 billion if he couldn't buy his child one peaceful night's sleep? "Mr. Harrison, you look like hell." Dr. Patricia Stevens didn't sugarcoat things. One reason Jonathan respected her. The other reason was that she was the only person who'd ever admitted the truth they were all avoiding. They were losing Lucas. "Another nightmare," Jonathan said, accepting the coffee she offered. They stood in her office at Riverside Pediatric Rehabilitation Center, watching his son through the observation window. Lucas sat motionless in his wheelchair, staring at nothing. Not at the expensive therapy equipment, not at the cheerful murals on the walls, not at the world. Just nothing. "How many this week?" Dr. Stevens asked. 5. And yesterday he bit the physical therapist, drew blood. Her eyebrows rose. "Lucas has never been violent." "No, he hasn't." Jonathan's voice was hollow. "But the gentle kid who loved dragons and space documentaries? I don't know where he went. This stranger who looks like my son. I don't know who he is anymore." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken options. They both knew what came next if nothing changed. "I'm trying something different today," Dr. Stevens said, carefully. "Someone new." "Another specialist we've tried," Jonathan replied. "Not a specialist, a volunteer." She held up a hand before he could protest. "1 session. If it doesn't work, we revisit the residential facility," Dr. Stevens added. The residential treatment facility. Jonathan had toured it last week. Clean, professional, where children went to be managed when their families gave up. The place felt like giving up. 1 session, he agreed. Dr. Stevens pressed the intercom. "Send her in." Jonathan expected an adult, a graduate student, a social worker, someone qualified. The door opened, and a kid walked in. She couldn't have been more than 13, drowning in a faded brown hoodie that had seen better days. She carried a battered backpack covered in Sharpie doodles, dragons mostly, breathing fire across the worn fabric. "What is this?" Jonathan turned to Dr. Stevens. "That's a child. You're sending a child to—" "Watch," Dr. Steves assured him. Through the window the girl walked straight toward Lucas's wheelchair. No hesitation, no fear, no condescending crouch or fake, cheerful voice. She just sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and dumped out her backpack. Coloured pencils scattered across the tile. Markers. A beat-up sketchbook. Some smooth rocks. A paperback fantasy novel with a cracked spine and a dragon on the cover. Lucas didn't react. He hadn't reacted to anything in 8 months. The girl picked up her sketchbook and started drawing. She didn't look at Lucas. She didn't try to engage him. She just drew. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Jonathan was about to declare this entire thing a waste of time when Lucas's head moved. Just slightly, tilting to see what she was drawing. The girl noticed. He could tell by the subtle pause in her hand, but she didn't acknowledge it. She kept drawing, her strokes confident and quick. 15 minutes. Lucas's hand twitched and reached out slightly toward the paper. He then stopped. The girl tore the page from her sketchbook and slid it across the floor toward him. A dragon. Mid-flight, breathing fire, scales detailed and intricate. Not professional, but good. Real. Lucas stared at it. Then Jonathan leaned forward, not believing what he was seeing. His son's hand emerged from under his blanket, slowly, shakily, and touched the paper. "Who is she?" Jonathan whispered. "Lily Chen. She's 13. Dr. Stevens paused. "She's homeless, Mr. Harrison. She lives at St. Catherine's Youth Shelter when she can get a bed. When she can't." She trailed off meaningfully. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. "She's what?" "Homeless. She has been for months, near as we can tell." Through the window, Jonathan watched the homeless 13-year-old slid another drawing toward his son. This one showed 2 dragons, one large, one small, flying together through clouds. Lucas picked it up. And for the first time in 8 months, something like curiosity crossed his face. "I want to know everything about her," Jonathan said. "Everything." By that evening, a full report sat on Jonathan's desk. But reports were just facts. They didn't explain what he'd witnessed. Name, Lily Chen. Age, 13, current residence, St. Catherine's Youth Shelter, irregular school. Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School, attendance sporadic, family. Deceased mother, 2 years ago, car accident. Father, unknown, social services, actively avoiding the system, no foster placement. The real story was in the margins, pieced together from shelter staff and school counselors. Lily had somehow evaded foster care by staying invisible, bouncing between shelters, friends' couches, and occasional nights sleeping rough. Smart enough to avoid the system while still attending school sporadically. 3 weeks ago, she'd shown up at the rehabilitation center asking about volunteer opportunities. Said she needed community service hours. That was a lie. There was no program. She'd just started appearing every day after school, helping where she could, reading to patients, drawing pictures, being present. No one knew why. Jonathan closed the file and looked at the second document. Lucas's latest psychiatric evaluation. Diagnosis: severe PTSD, survivor's guilt, complicated grief, emerging dissociative tendencies. Prognosis: poor without intensive intervention. Recommendation: residential treatment facility. He thought about the medication bottles, the parade of specialists, the therapy sessions where Lucas sat mute. Then he thought about the homeless girl sitting on the floor, drawing dragons, and Lucas reaching out. It wasn't much, but it was more than 8 months of expensive professionals had accomplished. The next day, Jonathan arrived early. He needed to see it again, to confirm he hadn't imagined it. Dr. Stevens met him at the observation window. "She's already here, started 20 minutes ago," Lily was back on the floor with Lucas. Today she'd brought coloured pencils and what looked like a homemade board game drawn on cardboard. "What is that?" Jonathan asked Dr. Stevens. "She made it. Some kind of adventure game. Dragons and knights," Dr. Stevens responded. Lily demonstrated, moving a small rock as her game piece. She'd drawn a face on it with marker, narrating as she went. "Your dragon lands in the forest of shadows," she said clearly. "You can fight the shadow wolves or try to sneak past them." "What do you do?" Lucas didn't answer. Lily waited. Not impatiently. Just waited. Then she picked up a second rock and held it out. "This one's yours. I drew it to look like a dragon rider, see?" The tiny rock had a miniature figure sketched on it in remarkable detail. Lucas's hand emerged. Slowly he took the rock. Jonathan's breath caught. "If you don't want to decide, I can decide for you," Lily continued. "But it's more fun if you pick. The dragon's yours. You should decide what." "He does." Then silence filled the room. Lucas's finger slowly pointed toward one of the paths on the cardboard. "Sneaking past? Smart choice. That's what I'd do too." Lily moved his piece forward. "Okay, you roll for stealth. We don't have dice, so pick a number between 1 and 6. Lucas's lips moved. No sound came out, but they moved. Lily leaned in. "What was that?" 4, Lucas whispered. Jonathan grabbed Dr. Stevens' arm. "Did he just—" "Yes." Dr. Stevens smiled. Through the window, Lily was grinning. 4, super sneaky. The wolves don't see you. You make it through and find a village celebrating something. Lights and music everywhere. Do you go in or stay hidden?" Lucas pointed again. They played for 40 minutes. By the end, Lucas had spoken 6 words. 6 words. More than he'd spoken in 8 months combined. When Lily left, Jonathan intercepted her in the hallway. "Lily, can we talk?" She spun around, her eyes wide. Up close, she was even thinner than he'd thought. Cheekbones too sharp. Wrists too narrow. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, immediately defensive. "I know. I just want to understand." He gestured toward an empty room. "Please. 5 minutes." She followed reluctantly, perching on the edge of a chair like she might bolt. "What you did with Lucas today?" Jonathan started, then stopped. "He spoke. Did you know that?" "Yeah. Those are the first words he's spoken in 8 months," Jonathan explained. Lily's eyes widened. "Really? He doesn't speak?" "He used to. He loved telling me about dragons, space, superhero physics theories." A faint smile crossed his face. "Then the accident happened and he just stopped." "What happened?" Lily asked. Jonathan took a breath. "A truck. My wife died. Lucas was trapped in the car with her body for hours. Then the paralysis, the guilt. He thinks it's his fault she's dead." Lily was quiet for a long moment. "I help Lucas because when I look at him, I see someone drowning, and I know what drowning feels like." She met his eyes. "Your son is sad, the kind of sadness that makes you forget anything good ever existed. I just want him to remember that dragons are cool and games are fun and maybe life isn't completely terrible." Something cracked open in Jonathan's chest. This homeless 13-year-old was trying to save his son with colored pencils and cardboard because she knew what it meant to be left alone in the dark. "What happened to you?" he asked gently. "My mum was my family. When she died, there was nobody else." "You're 13. You should be in foster care." "I don't want foster care." Her voice carried an edge. "I'm fine where I am." "A shelter isn't fine." "It's better than some places." Jonathan studied her. The defensive posture, quick reflexes, how she sat closest to the door. This was a child who'd learned not to trust adults. "Lily, I want you to keep seeing Lucas, every day if you're willing. And I want to pay you." "No," immediate and firm. "Why not?" "Because then it's a job with rules and expectations and people telling me what to do. I help Lucas because I want to, because it matters, not because someone's paying me." "Then let me help another way. Transportation money. Meal vouchers." She stood. "I don't need charity, Mr. Harrison." "It's not charity. You're helping my son when nobody else could." "I said no." She headed for the door, then paused. "Your son doesn't need more money spent on him. He needs you to play the dragon game with him. He needs you to ask what he'd do in the Forest of Shadows. He needs his dad to see him as Lucas, not as a broken thing that needs fixing." The door closed. Jonathan sat alone, the words of a homeless 13-year-old echoing in his ears. She was right. God help him. She was absolutely right. That night, Jonathan didn't go to his study. He didn't take calls from Tokyo or London. He didn't review quarterly reports. He went straight to Lucas's room. His son was awake, staring at the ceiling. The dragon drawings Lily had made were spread across his nightstand like precious artifacts. "Hey, buddy," Jonathan said, pulling up a chair beside the bed. Lucas didn't respond, but his eyes flickered toward his father, just for a moment. "I met your friend Lily today. She's pretty remarkable." Jonathan picked up one of the drawings, studying the intricate scales she'd sketched. "She told me about the dragon game you played. The Forest of Shadows sounds challenging." The room fell into silence. "If it was me, I think I would have tried to fight the wolves." He smiled slightly. "Probably would have gotten myself killed. Sneaking past was the smarter choice." Lucas's fingers twitched against the blanket. Jonathan set down the drawing and leaned forward. "I'm sorry, son. I've been so focused on your legs, the therapy, the doctors. I forgot about the things that actually matter to you, the dragons, the stories, the part of you that's still you." The room was quiet except for the soft hum of medical equipment. "Lily said something today. She said you're sad." Jonathan's voice cracked slightly. "And she's right. I'm sad too. I miss your mom every single day. I hate that I wasn't there when you needed me most. I hate that I can't take away what you saw, what you went through." A single tear rolled down Lucas's cheek. "But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Jonathan reached out slowly, giving Lucas time to pull away if he wanted. "If you want to talk about dragons or space or superheroes, anything, I'm listening. And if you don't want to talk at all, that's okay too. I'll just be here." Lucas's hand moved. Slowly, shakily, it emerged from under the blanket and reached toward his father. Jonathan took it carefully, like holding something infinitely precious and fragile. They sat there in the dim light, father and son, hands clasped in silence. No words, no therapy protocol, just presence. And for the first time in 8 months, when Lucas finally drifted to sleep, he didn't scream. The next morning, Jonathan woke with his son's hand still in his. He had fallen asleep in the chair, and his neck was sore, and his back hurt. But when he looked down and saw Lucas sleeping quietly, no tossing and turning, no bad dreams, just calm breathing. It didn't bother him anymore. For 8 months, he had asked for help from a lot of people. Doctors with lots of fancy degrees and papers, therapists with big machines and rules to follow, special helpers who used long words like trauma and grief, but none of them made things better. Then a homeless 13-year-old with a cardboard game had accomplished what none of them could. She'd reminded Lucas that he was still Lucas, still a boy who loved dragons and adventures, still someone who could make choices, even if those choices were as small as which path to take in a made-up game. Jonathan carefully extracted his hand and stood, his joints protesting. Through the window, dawn was breaking over the estate grounds. The gardens his late wife had designed were covered in frost, each blade of grass glittering like crystal in the early light. Margaret would have loved this morning. She'd always been an early riser, insisting the best moments happened before the world fully woke up, when everything was quiet and possible. God, he missed her. But more than that, and the guilt of this realization made his chest tight, he'd been so consumed by his own grief that he'd forgotten Lucas was grieving too. His son had lost his mother while trapped and helpless, and Jonathan had responded by throwing money at the problem, as if trauma could be fixed with expensive interventions, as if Lucas needed more specialists instead of his father sitting on the floor playing dragons. Your son doesn't need more money spent on him. He needs you to play the dragon game with him. Lily's words echoed in his mind. How did a 13-year-old homeless girl understand his son better than he did? Jonathan arrived at the rehabilitation center at 7:30 a.m., 2 hours before Lucas's morning session. He needed to talk to Dr. Stevens. He needed to understand what was happening, why it was working, and how to make sure it continued. The parking lot was nearly empty. His Tesla was alone, except for an old Honda Civic with a cracked windshield parked near the side entrance. He was walking toward the building when he saw Lily. She was sitting on the concrete steps leading to the center's side entrance, her backpack clutched against her chest, like a shield. Even from a distance, Jonathan could see she was soaked through, her brown dress with water. She was shivering violently, but it was her posture that stopped him cold. She sat with her back pressed against the wall, her head constantly swiveling between the parking lot entrance and the street beyond. Every few seconds her eyes would dart to the tree line bordering the property. Her shoulders were hunched, her whole body coiled tight like she was ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. This wasn't just a girl waiting for the center to open, this was someone hiding. "Lily!" She jerked up so violently she nearly fell backward. Her hand went to her backpack, gripping the strap with white knuckles. For a split second, pure terror flashed across her face, the kind of fear that came from experience, not imagination. Then recognition flickered in her eyes and something shifted. Not relief exactly, more like the quick calculation of whether he was a threat or not. "Mr. Harrison." Her voice was steady, but Jonathan noticed how her gaze kept sliding past him to scan the parking lot. "You're early." "So are you." He moved closer, and she tensed. He stopped several feet away, giving her space. "How long have you been out here?" "Not long," Lily responded. That was a lie. Her clothes were completely soaked, which meant she'd been in the rain for hours. The overnight storm had stopped around 4 a.m. "Lily, what happened?" He kept his voice gentle, non-threatening. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." She turned her face slightly as she said it, and that's when Jonathan saw a bruise, fresh, blooming across her left cheekbone in shades of purple and red. "You're hurt." "I fell." The words came out too fast, too practiced. "It's nothing." "That doesn't look like nothing." Her jaw clenched. "I said it's fine." She was still scanning the parking lot, still gripping her backpack, like someone might try to rip it away, still positioned with her back to the wall so nothing could approach from behind. "Where did you sleep last night?" Jonathan asked. "It doesn't matter." The snap in her voice was defensive, almost aggressive. Then she seemed to catch herself, forcing her tone lighter. "I'm here now, that's what counts, right?" But her hands were shaking, and not just from the cold. Jonathan crouched down, making himself less imposing. "Talk to me. Please. What's going on?" For a moment, he thought she might actually answer. Her lips parted, and something vulnerable flickered across her face. The expression of a child who desperately wanted help, but didn't know how to ask for it. Then her gaze caught on something behind him, and every muscle in her body went rigid. Jonathan turned. A dark sedan had pulled into the parking lot. Tinted, windows. Moving slowly like the driver was searching for something, or someone. When Jonathan looked back at Lily, she'd gone pale. "I need to go." She was already standing, already moving. "Wait," Jonathan said urgently. "Tell Lucas I'm sorry. Tell him I'll try to come back tomorrow," Lily said as she hurried backward, her eyes locked on the sedan. "Lily, what's wrong? Who is that?" Jonathan asked, his voice filled with concern. "Nobody. I can't be here right now." She lied. The sedan's door opened. Lily ran fast. She bolted toward the tree line, her backpack bouncing against her spine. Jonathan watched her disappear into the woods with the practiced speed of someone who'd done this before, someone who knew exactly how to vanish. The sedan door closed without anyone getting out. After a moment, the car reversed and drove away. Jonathan stood alone in the parking lot, his heart pounding, staring at the trees where Lily had disappeared. What the hell had just happened? "She's running from something." Dr. Stevens looked up from her coffee. They were in her office, and Jonathan had just recounted the morning's events. Outside the window, the woods where Lily had vanished were quiet and still. "Did you see who was in the car?" Dr. Stevens asked. "No, the windows were too dark, but Lily saw them, and she was terrified." "You think someone's looking for her?" I think she's been looking over her shoulder for a long time. Jonathan thought about Lily's posture on the steps, the constant vigilance, the way she'd positioned herself with her back to the wall. The question is why? She's a homeless teenager. There could be any number of reasons. Abusive family member, dangerous situation at the shelter, someone she ran from in her past, or someone actively hunting her. The words hung in the air between them. Dr. Stevens set down her coffee. Jonathan, we need to be careful here. If Lily is in danger, if someone is pursuing her, we could be putting her at greater risk by getting involved. She's 13 years old. I know, but she's also clearly chosen to handle this on her own for a reason. Pushing her might drive her away completely. So what do we do? Just let her keep sleeping on the streets and running from mysterious cars? We give her options. We let her know we're here if she needs help. But we don't force it. Dr. Stevens paused. And we definitely don't ask too many questions she's not ready to answer. Jonathan thought about the terror on Lily's face when she'd seen that sedan, the way she'd run, without hesitation, without explanation. Whatever she was running from, it was real. And it was close. Lucas asked about her, he said quietly. This morning, when he woke up. The first thing he did was look around for Lily. She's become important to him. She's become necessary to him, which means we need her to be safe and present. Jonathan met Dr. Stevens' eyes. I'm going to help her. Whether she wants it or not. Just be careful. Girls like Lily, they've learned not to trust adults for good reasons. You push too hard, you'll lose her, Dr. Stevens said. Then I won't push. I'll just make sure she knows she has somewhere safe to go when she's ready, Jonathan explained. She showed up 4 hours later. Jonathan was in the observation room, watching Lucas with a physical therapist when he saw movement in the hallway. Lily, her hair still damp, her bruised face mostly hidden behind a curtain of dark strands. She moved like a ghost, pressed close to the wall, her eyes constantly scanning. When she reached Lucas's room, she paused at the door and looked back down the hallway, checking for pursuit. Jonathan stepped out of the observation room. Lily, he called. Are you okay? She flinched, then relaxed fractionally when she saw him. Mr. Harrison. I'm fine. That same lie, delivered with the same practiced ease. The car this morning, Jonathan said, was nothing. I just got spooked. She shifted her backpack. Can I see Lucas? She was shutting down the conversation, redirecting, and the way her hand had moved instinctively to grip her backpack strap told Jonathan she was ready to run again if he pressed. So he didn't. Of course. He's been asking about you, Jonathan said. Something genuine flickered across her face then. Relief, maybe even happiness. Really? Really? He's worried about you. He shouldn't be. I'm the one who worries about him. But her voice had softened, and when she looked through the window at Lucas, Jonathan saw her whole posture change. The tension eased slightly, the constant vigilance dimmed. Lucas was safe. And being near Lucas made Lily feel safe, which gave Jonathan an idea. Lily, I want to offer you something. No strings attached, no obligations, Jonathan said. Her eyes narrowed immediately. What? There's a guest house on my property. Small, private, completely separate from the main house. You could stay there. No, Lily replied instantly. The rejection was instant and firm. Just hear me out, Jonathan said. I said no. Her voice had gone hard. I don't need charity. I'm handling things. By sleeping outside in the rain and running from cars. Her eyes flashed with anger. You don't know anything about my situation. You're right. I don't. Because you won't tell me. Jonathan kept his voice level. But I know you're helping my son, and I know you're in trouble. So I'm offering you a safe place to stay, that's all. No questions, no conditions, just a locked door and a warm bed. And what do you get out of it? Lily said. The question was pointed, suspicious. She'd learned to look for the angle, the hidden cost. I get my son's friend safe and healthy, Jonathan said honestly. I get to sleep at night knowing you're not hiding under an overpass. I get to repay a fraction of what you've given Lucas. Lily's jaw worked. She was thinking, calculating, weighing options with the tired pragmatism of someone who'd learned to trust no one. If I say yes, she said slowly, it doesn't mean I'm staying forever. The second I don't feel safe, I'm gone. Please don't ask me questions about where I've been or who I'm. She stopped herself. So there was someone she was running from, someone she feared enough that even the mention of them made her cut herself off. No questions, Jonathan agreed. She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her turning it over, trying to find the trap, the catch, the thing that would make this offer dangerous instead of safe. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but just for a few nights, until I figure some things out. Fair enough. And Mr. Harrison, her voice dropped. If anyone comes looking for me, anyone at all, you don't know where I am. You've never heard of me. Please. The fear in her eyes when she said it made Jonathan's stomach turn. Understood, she nodded. Once more, then pushed through the door to Lucas's room. Jonathan watched through the window as his son's face lit up. Watched as Lily pulled out her sketchbook and sat down on the floor. Watched as Lucas reached for her hand and she took it, squeezing gently. And he thought about the dark sedan, about the way Lily constantly watched the exits, about the bruise on her face and the terror in her eyes. Someone was hunting her, and Jonathan was going to find out who. The guest house was small but comfortable. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a living area with a kitchenette. Jonathan had his assistant stock it with food and basics, then had a locksmith install a deadbolt that could only be opened from the inside. When Lily arrived at 8 p.m., she carried a single duffel bag that looked like it weighed almost nothing. Everything she owned in the world. He met her at the door, handed her the key, and showed her around. She listened politely, but her attention was elsewhere. Cataloguing, exits, and sight lines, and potential threats. When they reached the bedroom, she immediately checked the window, testing the lock, noting the drop to the ground, measuring whether she could fit through if she needed to escape. The main house is about 50 yards that way, Jonathan said, pointing. My cell number's on the fridge if you need anything, but otherwise this space is yours. Complete privacy. Thank you. It was perfunctory, automatic. Lily? He waited until she looked at him. Whatever you're running from, you're safe here. My property has security cameras and a gated entrance. Nobody gets in without clearance. He saw it then, the moment she almost told him. The words were right there, pressing against her lips. The truth about who was chasing her and why she was so afraid. But then she swallowed them back, and her expression shuttered. I'm not running from anything, she said. I just like to be careful. Another lie, but Jonathan let it stand. Well, if you change your mind and want to talk, I'm around. She nodded, already turning away, already dismissing him. He left her there and walked back to the main house through the cold night air. When he glanced back, he could see her silhouette in the window, standing perfectly still, watching the darkness. Still keeping guard, still running, even when she'd stopped moving. The next morning, Lily showed up at the center at 9 a.m. sharp. She looked better, cleaner, more rested. The bruise on her face had been carefully covered with makeup she must have bought somewhere, but she still checked the parking lot 3 times before entering the building. Lucas's session started at 9:30. Lily sat on the floor with him, sketchbook open, and began to draw. A castle this time, with tall towers and flags flying in the wind. This is where the dragons live, she said softly. It's the safest place in the whole kingdom. Nothing bad can reach them here. Lucas watched her draw with intense focus. Do you think, he whispered, dragons ever get scared? It was the most complex sentence he'd spoken in 8 months. Lily's hand paused on the paper. Yeah, I think they do. What scares them? She was quiet for a moment, and Jonathan, watching through the observation window, saw something painful cross her face. Being found when they're not ready, she said finally. Being trapped. Losing the people they love. Lucas nodded slowly, like this made perfect sense. But here's the thing about dragons, Lily continued, her voice stronger now. They're really good at surviving. Even when they're scared, even when everything's terrible, they keep going. They find safe places. They protect themselves. And sometimes, she added a flag to the tallest tower, they find other dragons who understand them. Are you a dragon? Lucas asked. The question hung in the air. Maybe, Lily said quietly. Are you? I think so. Then we're a team, she smiled at him. And despite everything, the fear, the running, the bruises, the smile was genuine. Dragons stick together. Lucas smiled back. In the observation room, Dr. Stevens gripped Jonathan's arm. Did you see that? That's the first time he's smiled since… I know, Jonathan's voice was thick. But even as he watched his son smile, even as his heart swelled with hope, part of his mind was elsewhere. On Lily. On the sedan in the parking lot. On the way, she still watched the door, even now, even while helping Lucas heal. She was giving his son everything. But what was it costing her? The call came that afternoon. Jonathan was in his study when his head of security buzzed through. Mr. Harrison, we had a situation at the front gate about 20 minutes ago. Jonathan's blood went cold. What kind of situation? A man in a dark sedan said he was looking for a girl matching Lily Chen's description, claimed to be her uncle. What did you tell him? Exactly what you instructed, that we don't have any information about residents or guests. He left, but… The security guard paused. He took photos of the property before he drove away, and he said to tell you that her family is very worried about her, that they just want to bring her home. Jonathan's hands clenched into fists. If he comes back, you call the police immediately, and you alert me before anyone gets through that gate. Yes, sir. Jonathan hung up and stared out the window toward the guest house. Someone was hunting her, and now they knew where she was. That night, Jonathan knocked on the guest house door at 9 p.m. No answer. He knocked again. Lily, it's Jonathan. I need to talk to you. Still nothing. He tried the door, unlocked, which immediately set off alarm bells because Lily would never leave the door unlocked unless… He pushed inside. The guest house was empty. Her duffel bag was gone. The bed was neatly made. The kitchen was clean. It was like she'd never been there at all. Except for one thing. A piece of paper on the counter held down by a coffee mug. Jonathan picked it up with shaking hands. The note was written in Lily's careful handwriting. Thank you for trying to help. I'm sorry I have to go. Tell Lucas I'm sorry too. Tell him the dragon found a new castle. Tell him he's braver than he knows. Don't look for me. It's safer this way. Lily. Jonathan read it 3 times, his chest tightening with each pass. She was gone. She'd run again. And this time, he had no idea how to find her. He pulled out his phone and dialed Dr. Stevens. Lily's gone, he said when she answered. She left a note and disappeared. Jonathan, a man came to my gate today. Said he was her uncle. Said her family wants her back. His voice was hard. I think whoever she's running from found her, and I think she's in more danger than we realized. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, what are you going to do? Jonathan looked at the note again, at Lily's careful words, at the apology written in the shaky handwriting of a terrified child. I'm going to find her, he said, before whoever's chasing her does. How? I don't know yet, but I'm not letting a 13-year-old girl face this alone. He paused. And I'm not telling Lucas she's gone until I have answers. He's finally starting to heal. I'm not taking that away from him. Jonathan, if she doesn't want to be found, she's a child, he interrupted. She doesn't get to make the decision to disappear into the night because some phantom from her past is hunting her. I don't care what she wants right now. I care about keeping her alive. He hung up and stood in the empty guest house, holding Lily's note. Somewhere out there in the cold dark, a 13-year-old girl was running for her life. And for the first time in 8 months, Jonathan Pierce had a purpose that wasn't grief or guilt. He had someone to save. At 11 p.m., Jonathan's security called again. "Sir, the camera's picked up something near the south entrance, someone moving through the woods on foot." "Show me." The image came through on his phone. Grainy night vision footage showing a small figure moving between the trees, backpack on their shoulders. Lily. She hadn't run far. She'd circled back, staying in the woods at the edge of his property, still running, still hiding, but unable to leave completely. Because of Lucas. Jonathan grabbed his coat and headed for the door. Jonathan found her 20 minutes later. She was sitting against a massive oak tree about 100 yards from the property line, her knees pulled to her chest, her backpack beside her. In the moonlight filtering through bare branches, she looked impossibly small, a child playing at being invisible, hoping the darkness would swallow her whole. She heard him coming. Of course she did. Her head snapped up, and even from 30 feet away, Jonathan could see her body coil, ready to run. "It's just me," he called softly. "Just Jonathan." She didn't relax. If anything, she tensed further. He stopped about 10 feet away, his hands visible, his posture non-threatening. "You're good at disappearing, but not quite good enough. You shouldn't have followed me." Her voice was tight, controlled. "You need to go back to the house. Pretend you never saw me." "I can't do that," Jonathan said. "Mr. Harrison, I'm not leaving. You out here alone." He took a careful step closer. "A man came to my gate today, said he was your uncle." The reaction was immediate and visceral. Lily's face went white, and her hand shot to her backpack, fingers digging into the fabric like it was the only thing anchoring her to earth. "What did you tell him?" The words came out strangled. "Nothing. My security turned him away. But he took photos of the property, Lily. He knows you're here." Jonathan paused. "Or at least, he knows you were here." She was shaking now, full body tremors that had nothing to do with the cold. "He's not my uncle," she whispered. "I don't have an uncle." "I know," Jonathan said, her head jerked up, eyes wide with surprise and fear. "How?" "Because you're terrified of him. And real family doesn't make you look like a hunted animal." Jonathan took another step closer. "Who is he, Lily? What does he want?" "It doesn't matter," she said. "It matters to me. It matters to Lucas. And whether you believe it or not, it should matter to you. You don't understand." She stood abruptly, grabbing her backpack. "You can't help me. Nobody can. The only thing that keeps me safe is staying invisible and staying moving. That's not living. That's just surviving." "Surviving is all I've got." The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. "Talk to me," Jonathan said. Tears were streaming down her face now, silent and unchecked. "I can't stop. If I stop, he finds me. And if he finds me—" Her voice broke. "What happens if he finds you?" Jonathan asked. She shook her head violently, backing away. "I have to go. I have to leave the city, maybe leave the state. I shouldn't have stayed this long. I shouldn't have—" She choked on the words. "I shouldn't have let myself care about Lucas. But you did. And he cares about you too, which means you're not just running from something anymore. You're running from someone who needs you. He'll be fine without me. He has doctors and therapists and a father who couldn't reach him in 8 months. You did that in 1 day, Lily. You." Jonathan's voice was fierce now. "You gave my son something I couldn't. You reminded him he was still human, still capable of connection. And if you disappear, if you just vanish into the night, what do you think that's going to do to him? Better than what happens if they find me because of him." The words hung in the cold air between them. Jonathan took a breath. "Talk to me, Lily. Are there more than one person looking for you?" Lily's face crumpled. She slid back down against the tree, and for the first time she looked exactly like what she was. A terrified, 13-year-old child who'd been carrying impossible weight for far too long. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "And when I do, You're going to understand why I have to leave, why I can never stop running." Jonathan sat down across from her, close enough to hear but far enough to give her kind of space. "I'm listening." She stared at the ground as she spoke, her voice hollow with exhaustion. "My name isn't Lily Chen. That's what I call myself now. My real name is Lily Castellanos. My father was Marcus Castellanos. He ran one of the largest human trafficking rings in the Southwest, specialized in smuggling young girls across the border, selling them to the highest bidder." Her voice was mechanical now, reciting facts like they belonged to someone else. "I didn't know. Not until I was 11. I thought he was a businessman. I thought the men who came to our house were investors and partners." She pulled her knees tighter to her chest. "Then one night, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs for water and I heard them talking. Heard my father discussing a shipment of 12 girls, aged 8 to 14. Heard him laughing about how young ones brought premium prices." She closed her eyes. "I stood outside his office door and listened to my father talk about children like they were products, like they were things. I confronted him the next day. I asked him what I'd heard meant, and he—" Her voice cracked. "He sat me down and explained it to me, calmly, like he was teaching me about the stock market. Said it was the family business. Said one day I'd understand the necessity of it, the profitability. I told him I was going to tell someone. I was going to the police." And he laughed. Lily's hands were shaking. "Said I was his daughter. Said I'd be implicated too if his organization went down. Said I'd spend my life in juvenile detention while he hired lawyers good enough to walk away clean. I waited 2 months, planned it carefully, took cash from his safe, documents I thought might be useful, and disappeared the night before my 12th birthday." She looked up at Jonathan, and her eyes were ancient. "I've been on the streets for 14 months, moving every few weeks, never staying anywhere long enough to be found. Because my father's network is huge, because he has people everywhere, cops, social workers, even some of the shelters I tried to stay in, and because he wants me back." "Why?" Jonathan asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Because I have proof. Documents, recordings, names of buyers and suppliers. Everything I need to bring down his entire operation." She touched her backpack. "I've been carrying it with me for over a year, trying to figure out who I can trust to give it to, who won't be on his payroll, who will actually do something with it instead of making it disappear." "You could have gone to the FBI, federal prosecutors," Jonathan said. "With what? No proof I'm his daughter except my word, no way to verify my identity without alerting him. And even if I could—" She shook her head. "I'm 13, a homeless kid with a wild story about her rich father. Who do you think they'd believe?" She wasn't wrong. The system was designed to protect children, but it had massive blind spots. And a powerful man with unlimited resources could exploit every single one. "But it's worse now," Lily continued, "because my father got arrested 6 months ago. Not for trafficking, the FBI couldn't make those charges stick, but for tax evasion and money laundering. He's in federal prison awaiting trial." "Then you're safe. He can't reach you from prison." "You don't understand. My father's organization doesn't die just because he's locked up. His second in command, a man named Victor Reyes, took over operations, and Victor doesn't just want me back for the documents." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He wants me back because my father promised him I'd take over the business when I turned 18, that I'd be groomed to run the operation, that I was valuable merchandise." The implications made Jonathan's stomach turn. "Victor's the one in the dark sedan. He's been tracking me for months, getting closer every time. I thought I lost him when I came here, thought maybe I'd finally gotten far enough ahead to breathe." She wiped at her eyes. "But he found me. And now he knows I'm connected to you, which means you and Lucas are in danger too. So I have to leave. Tonight. Before—" "No," Jonathan said sharply. The word was firm, final. Lily looked at him in disbelief. "Did you not hear what I just said? These people are dangerous. They traffic children. They kill anyone who gets in their way. You can't—" "I can, and I will." Jonathan pulled out his phone. I'm calling someone who can help. There's no one who can help, Lily said, tears streaming down her face. There is. Trust me, Jonathan assured her. He dialed a number he hadn't called in 15 years. The woman who answered on the third ring had a voice like gravel and steel. Harrison, didn't expect to hear from you again. Rachel, I need a favor. Rachel Chen, no relation to Lily's assumed name, had been Margaret's college roommate and later became one of the most respected federal prosecutors in the Western District. She'd handled organized crime cases, corruption cases, and yes, human trafficking cases. If anyone could help Lily, it was her. What kind of favor? Rachel's voice was wary. They hadn't parted on the best terms, not after Jonathan had publicly criticized the DA's office for what he'd seen as overreach in a case years ago. The kind that involves a 13-year-old girl with evidence against the Castellanos trafficking network. Then there was silence. You have my full attention, Jonathan explained quickly. Lily's situation, the documents, Victor Reyes, the immediate danger. Rachel listened without interrupting, and he could practically hear her mind working through the angles. Put her on, Rachel said finally. Jonathan handed the phone to Lily. Talk to her, please. Lily took the phone with trembling hands. Hello? Jonathan couldn't hear Rachel's side of the conversation, but he watched Lily's face transform as they spoke. The terror gradually gave way to cautious hope, then to something that looked almost like relief. You can really do that, Lily whispered. You can keep me safe while… Okay, yes. She looked at Jonathan. She wants to know if you can keep me here for the next 3 hours. Absolutely. Lily relayed this to Rachel, listened for another moment, then hung up. She's coming here, with a team, federal agents, witness protection specialists, the whole thing. Lily's voice was shaking. She said, if the documents are as good as I think they are, she can use them to dismantle the entire network. But I have to testify. I have to go on record about what I know. Can you do that? I don't know. I'm terrified, but… She looked toward the house where Lucas was sleeping. If I don't, more kids get hurt, more families get destroyed, and I'll spend the rest of my life running. She took a shaky breath. I'm so tired of running. Then let's stop running. Jonathan stood and offered her his hand. Come back to the house, wait for Rachel, and let people help you for once. Lily stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she took it. After 3 hours, Rachel arrived at 2 a.m. with a convoy of black SUVs and enough federal agents to secure a small country. She was a petite woman in her 50s, with iron-grey hair and eyes that missed nothing. She sat across from Lily at Jonathan's dining room table and listened as the girl laid out everything. The documents, the recordings, the names, dates, locations. Years of her father's operation laid bare in the shaking voice of a child who'd lost her innocence the night she learned what her family really was. When Lily finished, Rachel sat back and exhaled slowly. This is enough, she said. More than enough. With this, we can take down not just Victor Reyes, but at least 40% of the network. We can save… She paused, calculating. Conservatively, hundreds of potential victims. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? But Lily, you need to understand what you're signing up for. Witness protection isn't easy. New name, new identity, new life. No contact with anyone from your past. And the trial will be brutal. Defense attorneys will try to destroy your credibility, paint you as a liar or a troubled kid. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. Harder than living on the streets for 14 months? Rachel smiled grimly. Fair point. I'll do it, whatever it takes. Lily looked at Jonathan. But I need to ask for one thing, one exception to the whole no contact with the past rule. What's that? Rachel asked. Lucas, Jonathan's son, he's been through hell, and I've been helping him heal, and I think helping him has been healing me too. Her voice was small. Can I still see him? Just until he's stable enough to handle me leaving? Please? Rachel looked at Jonathan, who nodded firmly. "I'll see what I can do," Rachel said. "But Lily, you need to understand that your safety comes first. If Victor finds you—" "He won't. Not with you guys protecting her." Jonathan's voice was steel. "I'll make sure of it." 2 weeks have passed. Lucas sat on the floor of the rehabilitation center with Lily, putting the finishing touches on their latest drawing. It was a massive mural they'd been working on together. A dragon soaring over a castle, free and powerful and unafraid. "Do you think dragons ever stop being scared?" Lucas asked. Lily set down her pencil and smiled at him. "I think they learn that being scared is okay. That courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about flying even when you are." "Are you still scared?" "Sometimes, but less than I used to be." Lucas nodded thoughtfully, then reached over and took her hand. "I'm glad you stayed." "Me too." She wasn't lying. For the first time in over a year, Lily wasn't running. She was living in a secure safe house, working with Rachel's team to prepare for the trial. Victor Reyes had been arrested 3 days ago based on evidence from Lily's documents, and the entire Castellanos network was crumbling. And every other day, federal agents drove her to the rehabilitation center so she could spend 2 hours with a 9-year-old boy who understood what it meant to survive impossible things. Jonathan watched from the observation room, his heart full in a way it hadn't been since Margaret died. Lucas was talking more, smiling more, engaging with the world again. The night terrors had decreased. The physical therapy was showing real progress. And all because a homeless girl with a cardboard game had seen his son as a person, not a patient. Dr. Stevens stood beside him, wiping at her eyes. "I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never seen a recovery like this." "Neither have I," Jonathan said quietly. Down below, Lily and Lucas were adding stars to their mural. Each one represented something they'd survived, Lily had explained. Each one was a reminder that they were still here, still fighting, still capable of creating beauty from pain. Jonathan's phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Grand jury came back. Indictments for Reyes and 47 others in the network. Lily's testimony was the linchpin. She did it. She actually did it. Jonathan smiled and texted back. "What happens now?" "Witness protection, new identity, fresh start." A pause, then another message. "But I pulled some strings. She can stay in the area, maintain limited supervised contact with Lucas during his recovery. Figured she'd earned that much." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank that kid. She's the bravest person I've met in 30 years of prosecuting monsters." Jonathan looked back through the window at Lily and Lucas, 2 children who'd survived hell and found each other on the other side. 2 dragons who'd learned to fly again. After 6 months, the trial was over. Victor Reyes and his associates were sentenced to consecutive life terms. The Castellanos trafficking network was dismantled. Lily's father, facing the testimony of his own daughter, took a plea deal that ensured he'd never see freedom again. And Lily Chen, now Lily Morrison, under witness protection, stood in Jonathan's backyard, watching Lucas run through the garden his mother had planted. He was running. After 8 months of being unable to walk without assistance, Lucas was running. Chasing butterflies and laughing, a sound Jonathan had thought he might never hear again. "You did that," Jonathan said softly, standing beside Lily. "You gave him his life back." "He gave me mine too." Lily smiled, but it was bittersweet. "Rachel says I start school next month. Real school, with teachers and classmates and homework. It feels weird." "Good weird or bad weird?" "Both." She paused. "I'm going to miss him. I know I can still visit sometimes, but it won't be the same." "No, but it'll be enough. And Lily?" Jonathan waited until she looked at him. "You're always welcome here. Not as Lucas's therapist or miracle worker, just as yourself. Just as a family." Her eyes filled with tears. "Family?" "Family," Jonathan confirmed. "If you want to be." She nodded. unable to speak. Lucas ran over then, breathless and grinning. "Lily! Dad, come see! There's a bird's nest in the oak tree!" "Show us," Lily said, taking his hand. As they walked toward the tree, Lily glanced back at the house, at the life she'd been offered, at the safety she'd finally found. She'd spent 14 months running from monsters, but she'd found something stronger than fear. She'd found family, purpose, hope. And for a girl who'd survived the impossible, that was the greatest miracle of all. The courtroom was packed for the final hearing. Lily Morrison, 14 years old and dressed in a simple blue dress, stood before the judge as her adoption papers were finalized. Jonathan Pierce, now officially her legal guardian, stood beside her. Lucas, 10 years old and walking without assistance, beamed from the front row. "Ms. Morrison," the judge said kindly, "do you understand what this adoption means?" "Yes, Your Honor, it means I have a family, a real one." "And you consent to this adoption freely?" "I do." The gavel came down. "Then it is the judgment of this court that the adoption is finalized. Congratulations to the Pierce family." Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The story had captivated the nation. The homeless girl who'd brought down a trafficking empire and found a family in the process. But Lily didn't care about the reporters, or the headlines, or the movie deals they'd already turned down. She cared about Lucas grabbing her hand and saying, "Does this mean you're my sister now?" "Yeah," she said, smiling through happy tears. "I guess it does." "Cool. Can we go get ice cream?" Jonathan laughed, a sound that had become more frequent over the past year. "Absolutely. What flavor?" "Dragon flavor," Lucas declared. "There's no such thing as dragon flavor," Lily protested. "Then we'll invent it. We're dragons. We can do anything." And as they walked toward the car, a father and his 2 children, bound not by blood, but by something stronger, Lily realized Lucas was right. They were dragons. They'd survived the fire. And now, finally, they could fly. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, and subscribe for more. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated, share the story with friends, and join us for more stories.